Number 3 on this list was so common that one company offered 10 different models of it in 23 variations in a single year. And number 1? Number 1 sold 3 million units before 1910. It cost about $6. It had an owl on the grip, and it is almost certainly the gun that was in your grandmother's house. In 1908, a farmer in Ohio could open the Sears catalog. He could mail in a few dollars. A loaded revolver arrived at his front door. No paperwork, no questions, no permission. That gun did not hang on a wall. It was not a trophy. It sat behind the kitchen door, or in the dresser drawer, or in an apron pocket. It was a tool, as ordinary as a hammer, as ordinary as a kerosene lantern. Today, most Americans have never seen one of these guns. Their own families owned them, 12 of them, every one forgotten. Let's count them down. Number 12. The Stevens Crack Shot. This was the first rifle, not the first good rifle, the first one, period. Stevens introduced it in 1900. It was a single shot, 22, and single shot was the entire point. One round. Then you stopped. Then you thought about it. A boy learned to make the shot count because he only had one. Fathers taught patience with a falling block and a box of shorts. It cost a few dollars. Every farm had one leaning in a corner. When repeaters got cheap, the crack shot vanished from the catalogs, and the lesson vanished with it. Number 11. The Stevens Favorite. Over 1 million were made. From 1893 to 1939, it sold for $6. The Favorite was a little falling block, 22 with a lever. It broke down in half with a single screw. A boy could carry it on a bicycle. He could carry it into the woods after chores and come home with squirrels. Stevens called itself the largest sporting arms maker in the world. This was the gun that earned that title. Ask a man in his 80s what his first gun was. There is a good chance he says this one, and there is a good chance he does not know where it went. Number 10. The Marlin Bolt Action. 22. Marlin built the Model 80 and the Model 81. Then Sears put its own name on them. So did Montgomery Ward. Same gun, different stamp. A tube under the barrel held a fistful of 22s. It was accurate. It was cheap. It never broke. This was the rifle that killed rats in the corn crib. It was the rifle that took the raccoon out of the henhouse. It was not exciting. It was just always there. Which is exactly why nobody remembers it. Number 9. The J.C. Higgins Model 20. Sears sold shotguns under the name J.C. Higgins. J.C. Higgins was not a gunsmith. He was Sears's bookkeeper. They borrowed his name because it sounded trustworthy. The Model 20 was a pump shotgun. High Standard built it. It arrived in 1946, right as the boys came home from the war. It was smooth. It was solid. It cost a fraction of a name-brand gun. For millions of American families, this was the shotgun. The one in the closet. The one your father handed you at 12. Number 8. The Stevens 520 Humpback. John Browning designed this one. That is not a small fact. The 520 had a strange humped receiver, and people thought it was ugly. It was also superbly machined. Sears sold it as the Ranger. Montgomery Ward sold it as the Western Field. Farmers bought it because it worked and because it was cheap. Nobody bought it because it was beautiful. Being ugly and reliable is a very American way to be forgotten. Number 7. The single-barrel break-action shotgun. One barrel, one shell. Break it open, drop it in, snap it shut. There was nothing to learn. There was nothing to break. This was the poor man's gun and the widow's gun. It hung on 2 nails over the door in 100,000 farmhouses. It fed families through the Depression. It killed the fox in the chicken yard. It was worth almost nothing then. It is worth almost nothing now. And it may have done more real work than any gun on this list. Number 6. The Winchester Model 1897. Now we step up. The 97 was a pump shotgun with an exposed hammer, and it looked exactly as serious as it was. It went to the trenches in the First World War. American soldiers used it so effectively in close quarters that Germany filed a formal diplomatic protest against it. Then it came home, and it went behind the kitchen door. The same gun the German army complained about spent the next 40 years guarding hen houses in Kansas. Here is where the story turns. Everything so far was a long gun, something you kept in a corner or over a door or in a closet, something a family shared. But there was another kind of gun in the American home. Smaller, quieter, kept much, much closer. Before we go there, one of these just put a specific room in your mind. Not a gun, a room, a kitchen, a closet, a drawer you were told not to open. Tell me in the comments which one, and whose house it was. Number 5. The Winchester Model 1894. The 30-30 deer rifle. The lever gun over the mantle. Winchester built it for more than a century and sold millions. It was the rifle that made deer season a working man's tradition. It was the rifle a man bought once and used until he died. Then his son used it. It is not truly forgotten, but the world it belonged to is. A world where one rifle was enough. Number 4. The Smith & Wesson Safety Hammerless. They called it the lemon squeezer. There was a grip safety on the back. You had to squeeze the whole thing properly to make it fire. There was no hammer to catch on a pocket or an apron. It could not go off if you dropped it. This was the gun designed for a house with children in it. It was the gun designed for a woman alone. Small, blunt, and completely serious. Number 3. The Harrington & Richardson 32. Here is the forward reference paying off. By 1899, H&R was offering 10 different revolver models in 23 variations, all in the same little 32 cartridge. They were called dresser drawer guns, or sock drawer guns. That is where they lived. There was no other purpose for these millions of cheap 32s. They were not for hunting, they were not for war, they were for the sound at the back door at 2 in the morning. Number 2. The Mail Order Catalog Revolver. In 1902, the Sears catalog sold pocket revolvers for around $2.50. A comparable Smith & Wesson cost $11. Companies made guns specifically to be sold this way. Iver Johnson registered a separate company just to funnel cheap revolvers into the catalogs. You circled it. You mailed the money. The mailman brought you a gun. Then, in 1968, the Gun Control Act outlawed mail-order firearms. The catalog gun died overnight. Not gradually, overnight. And number 1. The Iver Johnson Owlhead. Look at the grip. There is an owl staring back at you. Iver Johnson sold 3 million of these in 32 alone before 1910. It was a top-break revolver. Snap the latch and the barrel tips down. The empty shells kick out on their own. And here is what almost nobody knows. Iver Johnson invented the transfer bar safety. It could not fire unless you pulled the trigger all the way through. That is the same principle Glock would market as revolutionary nearly a century later. Iver Johnson did it in 1894 for $6. They were not made to be shot much. Ammunition was expensive. Most were fired a handful of times in 50 years. They were made to be there. In the drawer, in the apron, under the pillow. This is the gun that protected the American home. Not the Colt, not the Winchester, this one. The cheap one with the owl on it. And that is the truth about the guns America actually owned. They were not the guns of gunfighters. They were not the guns of soldiers. They cost a few dollars, and they came in the mail, and they sat behind the kitchen door for 50 years without ever being fired. They were quiet. They were ordinary. They belonged to families. And every single one of them is gone. If your family had one of these, tell me which one. And if you want more of the guns America grew up with, stay with us. There are plenty more where these came from.